How are your energy levels today on a scale of 1 to 10? Very good. Okay, cool. Awesome. So come sit in the front row. We need the energy. All right. 大家好. Hello, everyone. Please try to repeat after me. 大家好. Very good. Okay, now you know how to start a speech in Chinese. 大家好 literally means hello, everyone. So while I was preparing for today's speech, I got kind of philosophical. I started to imagine what the game industry is going to look like in 5 to 10 years. And, well, one thing is certain, I think. China is going to have some kind of influence on the whole industry. When it comes to marketing, when it comes to game regulations, you name it. When it comes to PC games, because that's the topic I'm going to focus on today, we have 2 versions of Steam. No one knows what's going to happen within a few years, but it's definitely going to be exciting. What's also exciting is the fact that the results of the case study I'm going to present to you and the tactics that we use to achieve the results are, well, result of almost a year of hard work of me and my team, kind of paving the way, exploring Chinese market because, well, there aren't that many benchmarks when it comes to, well, how to increase the topic of today's conversation. So the data, the tactics I'm going to share today with you, I hope you find them useful in your everyday work. Normally, when I start those presentations and I introduce myself, I tell you that I used to work at Bank of China, I used to live in China, and used to work as a freelance translator for Intel Extreme Masters, for Gwent tournaments, etc., etc. But I'm not going to tell you that. Instead, I'm going to tell you a story. So when I was in high school, I used to be a pretty hardcore World of Warcraft player. My first job application was actually to a guild on Burning Legion, and we used to do raids like 4 times a week. Well, when I moved to China, moved to Shanghai, started living there, I decided to give Chinese version of WoW a try. So my first surprise was the fact that, well, you don't really buy a monthly subscription, you buy the game time. So I bought like 7,000 minutes or something, logged in, and started playing. When I was leveling in Westfall, I met a Chinese player. We started talking, became friends, and the moment he realized that I wasn't Chinese, well, I told him that I'm from Poland, he immediately wanted to duel me. He immediately wanted to PK, to fight with me, to see who's better, and wanted to engage with me even more. Okay, what does this story tell us? When it comes to Chinese players, first of all, they're highly competitive, and for you as a developer or a marketing manager who wishes to enter Chinese social media channels and engage with your audience, engage with gamers, with influencers, you'd be surprised to find out how eager your audience is to engage back, to provide you with feedback, to record videos, etc., etc. So how about you guys? Please raise your hands, people who are actively promoting your games on the Chinese market, on Chinese social media. Okay, we have, cool. Who wants to try it? Okay, cool. So I hope some of the tactics I'll present today, you'll find them useful. But it's not all green. It's not perfect and not easy, a Chinese market. Well, first of all, I strongly recommend you to watch Damian Jaśkowski's presentation from last year because when we talk about different digital landscape, well, Chinese digital landscape is vastly different from the one in the West, not only when it comes to the main platforms, such as Bilibili, Douyin, Huqiao, etc., but also to media and to platforms that are dedicated to certain consoles or mobile. So we have a different digital landscape. That's the first thing. Second thing, as I imagine some of you might know, is the fact that in order to get published in China on local distribution channels, you need to have an ISBN license. It's a pain in the rear, as to say, because getting such license requires at least, let's say, 9 months to a year or even more. And there are only limited number of companies that might get it. But if your game is on global version of Steam, Chinese players can still buy it. So that's the thing with ISBN. Also, when you don't have an ISBN license, you cannot really do any paid marketing. By paid marketing, I mean, let's say, ads on Douyin. Of course, you can interact with certain platforms and do certain paid marketing activities within those platforms, but you cannot really, throw bigger amounts of money on your paid traffic or your performance marketing campaigns, because you're basically not allowed to. Another barrier is language. That's kind of obvious, but at the same time, it needs to be said that, well, Chinese gamers do not really speak English, and you need to have at least someone within your team or your partners that are helping you who knows the language. Time difference is obvious. When it comes to content adjustments, well, it's not to say that you need to adjust every single piece of content, because most of the times, let's say you're working on a space simulator, like X4, one of our clients, Egosoft. So the trailer for the global version was basically the same as the one we published on Chinese social media, but at the same time you need to take into consideration local laws so that you basically won't get banned. There's a hitch there. When influencer publishes something, they take responsibility for the content. When you publish something on your official channels, obviously you take responsibility. Because of the fact that platforms are different, that you need to know Chinese, well, oversight is harder. You need to have at least need to know how to navigate those platforms. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. And lack of benchmarks I mentioned before. But when it comes to strategy, if you're a PC developer, like 1/4, like 20% of your player base uses Chinese, speaks Chinese. Can you afford not to talk to them? For me, it's more of a question of resource allocation and finding the most cost-effective way to be able to engage with your player base. So it's not a question of if, but rather how. So imagine this, a real situation that happened more than a few times. Let's say you're a marketing manager in a game dev studio. Suddenly, you see a spike in wish lists. Few thousand, just let's say 5,000 one day, 8,000 the other. Okay, what happened? I didn't see any influencer materials, any videos published on Western social media. So where are those wish lists coming from, you might ask? So the first question we need to answer is, where do they come from? Okay, second one is, what exactly happened? And the third one, and I think most important in this case, is how can we repeat it? How can we build on it? How can we add to it? How can we implement this leverage to our marketing strategy. So, too long didn't read. Well, the obvious question is what happened? Some influencer posted a video. But if I were to tell you, okay, so register an account on Bilibili, on WeChat, DM that influencer in Chinese, then later on try to negotiate with them on WeChat, you might say, well, thank you, but nah. So hence this meme. But it's not as hard as you might think. And I'm going to go into more detail about it. So the first question is, where is it coming from? Where are those wishlists coming from? So these are the three main platforms you need to consider. Obviously, there are more than just these three, but if you're a PC developer, most likely influencer who posted the video posted it on one of these first two platforms. So Bilibili, Douyin, and Heybox. The first one, Bilibili. Think of it as YouTube/Twitch, of course I'm simplifying a little bit, that is focused entirely on games and anime. And with almost 90 million daily active users, you're talking about a big platform. So how do we use it? First of all, we establish your presence there. So we register the account of a particular developer or a publisher, post a video, a trailer, gameplay, just to increase the credibility, and then use it for the influencer outreach. Influencer outreach is going to be the main topic of the later part of this presentation, because it has proven to be the most time-effective and cost-effective when it comes to having an impact on increasing the game sales themselves. Moving on, second platform is Heybox. You might have heard about it. It's a local. First of all, it's an app. One thing you need to keep in mind is that more than 90% of the traffic in China is on mobile. So when Chinese players engage with your games, with the content you post, most likely they're doing it using their mobile phones. So Heybox is an app that has both like distribution channel properties and social media. A screenshot shown here is a main page of Infection Free Zone, one of the projects we've been working on. And what data can you find here? How learning about Heybox is useful for you? Well, for one, Chinese players can wishlist their games there. And those wishlists do not really appear on your global Steam page. So it's a different source of wishlists. And here you can see 7.21, which is around 72,000 wishlists, which is not a small number. So it's just by downloading Heybox, learning about your game performance, there you can have a bigger, more full of a picture to know what the Chinese players are into, what are their opinions, because they can comment on your games page too. It's connected to the global version of Steam. It automatically scrubs the data. Also, one important thing to mention here is that you can sign a distribution agreement with Heybox or other platforms like Songfo, which is purely revenue share based, so that they will promote your game on the platform itself and sell it through that platform. Moving on to the third platform I mentioned, Douyin. Who here uses TikTok? Please raise your hand. Okay, so 1/3 of the audience. Well, when it comes to games in China, Douyin is the best for mobile games, mostly due to the fact that the marketing funnel is shorter. Chinese players can basically click on the ad and download the game pretty easily. Unfortunately, you cannot, again, no ISBN, no paid traffic. So if you were to enter Douyin, you'd have to rely entirely on organic traffic, which is not going to be really that effective. Of course, you can give it a try to be more client-facing, to put your content out there, but I'd recommend to use it mostly for outreach and engagement, at least at the early stages. The screenshot here is from one of the videos posted by influencer about Haven Dog, one of the games we've been working on, and this video was actually the source of, if I remember correctly, at least 3,000 to 4,000 wish lists. And it's the video from the beginning of the presentation, the story I told you about. So suddenly you have a few thousand wish lists, okay? So what to do? What to do next? Establish presence, reach out to that influencer, thank them, show them appreciation, and maybe share some keys for future cooperation so that they might produce more content. Okay, so let's give it a try. I'd like to invite you to check the Bilibili by yourselves. So enter, please try to enter this address and search for maybe the game you're working on currently, or the game that you're really interested to learn more about. And no worries, you can put in the game name in English. Very often Chinese influencers put the game titles in English too. So what it will show you is the grid of videos posted about the game you're into. So that would be the first step in getting to know what's out there on the Chinese internet. What are the Chinese players? What are Chinese influencers saying? Next step would be to, if we were to try to engage with them, establish presence, reach out to them, thank them for posting content, establish relationships so that later on we can add those influencers to the whole marketing mix and treat it as another distribution channel for announcements, for new content, for new updates, etc. And for full immersion, you can try to do a little exercise and try to find those characters, 最多联系, which literally means sort by most popular ones. How is it going? Did anyone manage to find your game? If not, I can help you after the talk. Okay, so the second question we need to answer, so what's the current situation? So we check Bilibili, Douyin, and Haybox. We're mapping out how many videos were published on each platform, mapping out influencers, putting them into Google spreadsheet file so that later on we can reach out to them, and check the wish lists and comments on Haybox itself. What it will tell us is the overall perception of the game and whether Chinese players are into it or not. So how can I repeat it? And this is the part where I'll start to dive a little bit deeper into the tactics themselves. But generally speaking, it's all about showing appreciation, being close to your audience and influencers themselves. So luckily for us, registering the account on Bilibili doesn't really require a Chinese phone number. So you can use your European phone number, your American phone number to register the account. Why is it so important? Because, well, in other cases, in other platforms, very often you need to go through a very complicated process. I need to apply for permits, prepare a lot of documents. Me, myself, when I was registering our official account on WeChat, I had to take a picture holding my ID in one hand and the application in other. So Luckily for us, Bilibili is just a phone number, 5 to 10 minutes, and it works. So again, to sum up, where these three platforms you need to keep in mind, Bilibili, Douyin, and Haybox. What has the biggest impact on wishlist content produced by influencers, and how to repeat it? Well, first try to establish presence there and communicate with them weekly. I've prepared a checklist for you. These are basically the assets that we need to, or you need to, if you were to do your Chinese marketing in-house. It's a basic one. If you were to start the influencer outreach or any kind of marketing activities for that matter. First one, obviously, a localized game. Again, I refer you to Damian's speech from last year where he goes into much more detail about why it's really necessary, but obviously Chinese players do not speak English, not that many of them, so you need to have your game translated. Ready-to-go video assets, at least one, at least a trailer or a gameplay, so that when you publish it on Bilibili, you increase your credibility when doing the outreach to influencers. 30 to 50 keys. And why this number? Well, when you establish Bilibili account, there is a limit, daily limit for the messages you can send. It's 6 per day at the beginning. By the way, this gesture is 6 in Chinese. So that's why I'm doing it unconsciously. So 6 per day at the beginning, and then it moves up to 10, and later on there is no limit. But at the beginning, there are certain limitations that you need to take into consideration. Why at least 15% wishlist from China? This is our recommendation for any developer who wants to build on the interest, who doesn't want to burn their resources, or basically you need to build on the interest that is already there. If there are no wish lists, it's going to be a little bit harder. At the same time, if within, let's say, you're working on a roguelike, or a game that or a game genre that is particularly popular in China, then it's going to be a little bit easier because you can reach out to influencers who post content on about those similar games. But at the same time, try to have at least 15% wishlist coming from China before you put before you invest into Chinese marketing itself. Next one, obviously, team member who can coordinate the activities, whether if it's your Chinese publisher, any kind of external partner, or if you want to have your marketing in-house, then please pay attention to, okay, I'm going to say it like this. Hiring someone who just speaks Chinese, like a fresh graduate, isn't really going to be that effective, because you need to have at least some marketing know-how about, let's say, marketing funnel, or knowledge about games themselves. Another one, playable build. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but at the same time needs to be set so that influencer can record the video and later on post it. Phone number to establish Bilibili account, and the last one, 中文知识和文化. So Chinese knowledge about, first of all, the industry and about the game, and 文化, knowledge on how to speak with influencers so that the whole communication is smooth, it's pleasant, it's basically knowledge on how to establish relationships. And the devil is in the details, as always, because you need to take into consideration a lot of ways to, let's say, use emojis, or use certain phrases in Chinese. So you need to have that knowledge prior to doing the outreach. So let's plug in, let's dive a little bit deeper into the process itself. So if you were to try to repeat this sudden spike in wish lists, or try to maintain it and repeat it in, let's say, every 2 weeks. What you should do is, first of all, do your research. How we do it is, first step, mapping out all the content that was published about your game on Chinese social media. These two platforms are the main ones. So map out all the influencers. Our recommendation is to have a threshold of around 10,000 followers, because, well, you have to consider your resources, and doing outreach to an influencer who has below 1,000 followers isn't going to be that effective. But at the same time, if it all depends on your approach. If you want to focus on building a community and maybe try to have some of the influencers become later ambassadors of your game, as to say, or give you feedback about it, do the outreach to all of them. Later on, select 3 to 5 similar games and find the influencers who posted content about those similar games. It's pretty basic when you compared it to, the logic is very similar to the influencer outreach you do on Western media channels, but at the same time, since the platforms are different, there are certain rules to take into consideration. So that's why it's not as simple as it may seem at the very beginning. So the second step would be registering the account and doing the outreach. How we do it, and believe me, we've had our time of trial and error, because it all depends on first of all, the first message you're going to send, and later on the overall, like, how you're approaching those influencers. What's the overall attitude? So our recommendation is that, as Huqiao, is do not try to be salesy, pushy. Do not try to make it transactional in any way. Because one important thing to mention here, the results of influencer outreach I'm going to present to you later on today are all like non-paid cooperations. It's just us talking with influencers, sharing the keys, representing the studios, and influencers posting content for free. So in order to make it happen, we try to avoid any kind of transactional nature, because in the end, we're all gamers. We want to help each other. And some of the screenshots I'm going to show you are from the conversations with those influencers, and they say literally the thing that I just told you. So outreach to them, and then negotiating. By negotiating, I mean basically listening to their feedback, being open to their suggestions, and building on the relationship. So as I mentioned, devil is in the details. So 都是游戏创造者. We are all game developers. 大家互相帮助是应该的. So helping each other is just natural. 不用客气了. So no need for courtesies. 大家都是希望能有更多好玩的游戏出现. So we all hope that there'll be more and more great games appearing on the market. And these are the messages from one of the influencers. So as you can see, they're open to cooperation. They really want to help. A thing that I renpin. This is pretty interesting, because it's a word that you could translate to English as moral quality, character, and what I mean here is, when you talk with your Chinese audience, you need to consider the cultural difference, and you need to consider basically the way they communicate on WeChat, they communicate online. So be sure to add a lot of courtesy words or phrases. Be sure to thank them every time, to basically show your appreciation. And if it's going to be sincere, and I hope that it will be, it's going to prove really effective. Moving on to one of the case studies. Last time I did a presentation similar to this one, I presented a case study for games operators. Today I'm going to present you a pretty fresh one. Game was called Heaven Dog by Different Tales. Different Tales was the publisher. And what we did for that studio was mostly influencer outreach throughout 3 months. And we helped to publish and localize some video assets, so trailer, gameplays, and published it on Bilibili. The screenshot here is main page on Haybox. The data shown here are reviews. 4.9 is average playtime. 4,000 game copies sold, etc., etc. So we're pretty proud of it because during these 3 months we managed to establish relationships with almost 30 influencers, 15 of which posted the content for free, which led to wishlist increase on Haybox by 6,000 and almost 15,000 wishlists just from the Chinese market itself throughout that time. One of the biggest achievements here is also the fact that we managed to establish a relationship with a really big influencer with over 3 million followers, which isn't that easy because what I just told you about, showing appreciation, not being transactional, well, it ends when you reach a certain, when basically you reach out to bigger influencers. It's going to be less effective. That is not to say that they cannot post content for free if they like the game, basically. So again, we did outreach to influencers. We selected 3 to 5 similar games. So we reached out to influencers who posted content about those games, tried to get them interested in Heaven Dog, and did some community management on Bilibili itself. So basically, influencers were the main leverage, then posting content on Bilibili. This is an extempt from our report in April. So as you can see, like 10 videos, total number of followers, and ongoing report from ongoing negotiation with the new influencers, leading up to release of new videos. This is the main part, and so to sum up, when you see a spike in wishlists coming from China, it is most likely going to be the result of some Chinese influencer posting video. What you could do is check Bilibili, check Douyin, find out who posted the video, when, decide whether you want to reach out to them, maybe try to repeat the process. Later on, monitor what's happening on Haybox so that you can decide. Basically, you need this data if you're going to make any strategic decisions when it comes to Chinese market, to have a full picture. So content published on these 2 platforms plus Haybox. And now, since we have some time left, I've prepared a list of frequently asked questions that we hear during presentations like this one, or basically networking on events like Taipei Game Show, London Games, etc. Please allow me to jump into them. Of course, yeah, okay, so jumping into them. Of course, they are pretty big, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. So the main question we always hear is, does my game have the potential for Chinese market? Can it sell good on Chinese market? Well, I just gave you the tools to find out for yourself. Because, of course, things like genre, things like platform, so whether if it's PC, mobile, Switch, etc., and considering the market share of that particular platform is important. But at the same time, if you're in the process of your published version of Steam, there is something that players can engage with, you can check those platforms for the content. You can check Haybox. It will give you some kind of indicator of the interest out there. So what should I start with? Where to begin? The tactics and platforms I presented to you are just one of many. If you have ISBN license, the whole conversation would be totally different. Also, if you have a particular genre, let's say you're developing a multiplayer game, or so maybe reaching out to esport organizations might be better. It all depends, but generally speaking, you don't need that much, and I refer you to the checklist I presented before. Can I promote an erotic game in mainland China? During last, I think, 2 months, we had almost 4 leads for erotic games. I don't know why suddenly the spike, but generally speaking, no. But because of the fact that any kind of erotic content will be lewd content will most likely get banned on platforms like Bilibili or Douyin. But to my surprise, I found out that there were several publishers and several game studios selling those games on Haybox, and somehow they managed to get thousands of copies. I need to dive deeper into that. So another one would be, what are the main differences when it comes to Chinese gamers and Western gamers? And actually, we could talk about it for at least a few hours, but the main difference being the fact that Chinese internet is mostly mobile, and gaming, like game dev space is also most like 90% of the market, around 90% of the market is mobile. So Chinese players will most likely play on their phones. And to tell you a little story about that, last time I went to Taipei Game Show, they had, like on the main stage, they had a Candy Crush kind of game, and they were playing it competitively. So imagine Gamescom main stage playing mobile game competitively. It's interesting to see that, basically. And talking about, Diablo Immortal, or we see the trend. So mobile is here to stay, definitely. When it comes to other differences, well, Chinese gamers are pretty critical towards the games. When we compare reviews on Steam to reviews on Haybox, on average, the score is 1 point lower than the one on Steam. So you need to be prepared and avoid any review bombing and etc. Another one is, do I need a local publisher? Well, obviously, it all depends, because local publisher can definitely help you, but you need to consider whether are there any other options that you might explore first? Like, for example, signing a non-exclusive distribution agreement with Song4 or with Haybox, which doesn't really require you to pay any flat fees. So entering new distribution channel might be easier that way. Local publisher will definitely help you if you need any kind of support with local regulations, and I wouldn't really recommend trying to adjust your game content without a local partner, or at least partner with industry know-how that had went through this process themselves earlier on. Another question is how to track results. Well, how do we do it? We basically track them manually. So we monitor the videos that were published and are in constant communication with the dev team, with the marketing team, and monitor the impact on wishlists. Because it gives us the feedback about which influencer was the most effective, or had the biggest impact on the sales. But when it comes to tracking results, for example, of your Chinese partner or any partner in the local market for that matter, some of our clients, some of our partners have told us that they were facing some difficulties with getting to the bottom of what has actually happened on the Chinese social media channels, because they received somewhat 모호, somewhat like the report wasn't clear enough. Basically, there was a lump sum of money, we spent this much on marketing, and these are the results. And the results were good. But the studios we were in talks with were like, okay, but how can I contribute? Maybe we can do something more. Maybe we can do something different. So it was a challenge for these studios, because they didn't want their Chinese partners to lose face in any kind of way, meaning that they didn't want it to appear that they are questioning the results in any way, but at the same time, they wanted to contribute. So it was a, well, let's say a challenge on the negotiation level. At the same time, we were hired by one studio to do, let's say, reverse engineering of the marketing in China, and we found out that the game was actually functioning in there were 4 different names for the game, published on different platforms, which has proven to have a negative impact on the marketing itself, because people were basically entering different names. So okay, and I see that now is the time to end. So mobile or consoles or crypto games, if you want to learn about these, let's talk after the presentation. Thank you very much.
We still have time. We still have time for one question, so you can ask about mobile or consoles or crypto games, or ask any other kind of a question. So yes, please. But could you please step out and go to microphone?
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm
Mike.
working with Japanese gaming industry, and like a quick case study. The game I was working on had about maybe 20,000 wishlists in China, but super low conversions, even though we discounted it many times and even have a special price for China. Like, any recommendation what should be done for the next title?
Okay, were you communicating with the player base at any point in time?
No, just Steam.
I think that would be my first recommendation, because they might. Okay, so first you need to get to the bottom of this, like what was the reason. Try to engage with, what I would do is establish presence and start communicating with the player base, with the people that watch the influencer videos, with several influencers, get in touch with them and dive into influencer community. Very often they have like WeChat groups. WeChat groups can be up to 500 people, and you can basically try to ask them directly, try to get them to provide you with some kind of feedback. Any kind of engagement would be nice. Also distribution channels. Let's say, okay, you said you had 20,000 wishlists on Steam. If there were 20,000 wishes on Steam from China, I bet there were a few thousand wishlists on Haybox too. We can talk later on, and I'll check the game on Haybox, so we can see what are the comments saying. Maybe we'll find out there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wojciech. Let's give Wojciech one more round of applause.